Okay, so this is the first demo for the Contempt for Complaint for Contempt, done by Jason, James, and Eleni. I'm not sure who's going to be sharing their screen.
I'll share my screen.
The first step is obviously just to quickly show us the form itself. Obviously, he's familiar with it. I'm not too sure how Quentin, are you familiar with the form?
Well, let me just see. I think I am. This was the
Complaint for contempt.
Which I always mix up. The CC is a
family law complaint for contempt. I'm not very familiar with it. I think I saw the initial drafts.
All right. So this is the form.
Okay. Okay, right. So it can be civil or criminal.
Yep.
Sure. It's quite a field-heavy form. Okay, cool. Yeah, I remember seeing this, but I don't have that kind of knowledge that Kate does. So let's try to get as much as we can through the first bit. We'll just make notes of any plain language things that we see. Well, I'll make notes of plain language things that I see and give that feedback to you afterwards, just so that we can save some time on that aspect.
All right.
Okay, let's get cracking on the. I'm just going to open up a note here so that don't think that I'm not paying 100% attention.
All right, so am I good to start going through?
Yeah. Standard introduction screen, right?
Yep. Then yeah, we have this like complaint for contempt information page.
And is this have you been through this with Kate or another SME at all?
Yeah, Kate helped us out with.
Yeah, a little bit ago, a little while ago, I think, right?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I see the judgment is spelled right, so that's good. You nailed it. I'm just worried about the kind of length of that paragraph, but again, that might be plain language, so maybe.
Yeah, I think I wrote that in non-plain language and figured Caroline would fix it.
Okay. Oh, I see we've also got Michelle on at the moment as well. Michelle, hi. Oh, she's muted.
Hello, I was just waving. It's muted, so as not to disturb.
Okay, sorry. Okay. Okay, this looks good.
Cool.
Oh, sorry. The one thing that I did notice already, and I know I call this out on everyone's, is the introduction. I'm sorry, the page IDs. It's very important because, like now, for example, it can be very helpful for us if we were making notes, just to be able to identify those pages. So, and you know how to do that. It's just ID : and then the name.
All right. Cool. Yeah, we'll add that. All right, so then this is the first of 3 screener questions we have.
Okay.
Should I just show what happens if you answered a no to?
Yeah, so it's a
So if
kick
you
out
answer
screen.
no for any of them, it just.
I'm just sorry, I'm jumping in. Just if you go back to that question that you just came from, have you gotten anybody's names yet?
No.
Okay, so you might want to ask who the defendant is, and then use their name instead of referring to defendant.
And that's quite easy. Yeah. That's when you just have that kind of tag within the question. Is that right? Where you
say that again?
Yes, you have those Mako brackets surrounding.
Right. That's what that was.
And then you just put the variable name, so defendants 0 or something like that.
I think it's other parties, other underscore parties, parenthesis. No, is it parenthesis or bracket 0 dot familiar parentheses close curly bracket. I'll show you what it is. Wait, well, I don't know why I'm doing that.
We can do that later. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
But that is it alters your interaction with your user if you start using people's names right away, and they also don't get confused as easily.
Okay. So when you press no, it'll kick you. It'll go to an exit screen, right?
Yep. And it's the same exit screen for for any of the 3 questions.
Okay.
This is the second screener question. Then the third one.
So again, that would be a case. Sorry.
Go ahead. Is other side the defendant?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
They
So
can
that would be
change
another
that
case
one.
where you put the maker tags and put that variable in there.
I like how these
Oh.
are like well-defined questions, though.
Caroline's put the thing in the chat. I'm just going to copy it out in case we lose that. Okay.
yeah. This is just to decide the checkbox if it's a civil or criminal complaint.
My concern here
Caroline
is
can
that
probably fix this.
is the length of that paragraph. I'm not sure if that's strictly speaking plain language, or maybe we should just flag that as something to maybe review, either breaking it up a little bit or
Yeah,
wall
Yeah.
of text.
it's both.
I will say that the page is short enough
Yeah.
that I think if it can be made just a little bit shorter, then it should stay on the page as opposed to being a help page, because
Right.
taking it out of context isn't, I think, as helpful as leaving it in possibly.
Right. But I'm thinking
Absolutely.
maybe paragraphs, like, or something to.
Definitely.
Okay,
Yeah,
but-
this is a readability issue, I think,
Okay.
and I'm happy to just go over it.
And I'll say, I wrote that, and kind of probably the problem of having Caroline is I'm just like, whatever, she'll fix it.
I have a question though. Is the headline the right question? I guess that's. Is this complaint regarding
Is
civil or
basically,
criminal?
is it civil or criminal? Is that the question? Because then
It
you're
should-
Yeah, I
yeah.
think it should be, do you want to make a civil or criminal contempt?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yes,
Doesn't matter what the complaint is.
right.
Oh, right, exactly. The complaint is what you want. That's what you're
Right.
saying. Yeah, right, yeah.
Agreed.
So do you want a civil or criminal?
Well, it's neat. It's neat. You know,
Yeah.
you want
Not
to use
about the
need.
underlying
Lawyers.
matter.
You need.
It's about
Sorry.
the kind of contempt you're trying to get.
Okay.
Right.
Got it. And then does it depending on which radio button you select, does it take you to a different path, or is it the same path regardless because it just checks those two boxes?
It's the same path
Okay.
for either one.
And I'm trying to think, can you select both? I don't know this,
Mm-mm.
actually. You can only pick one, right?
Yeah. If you have circles, which are radio buttons, that always means you can only do one. If you
No, I meant in
Kate's asking
practice.
like whether you can have a civil and
Legally.
criminal.
Like, I'm trying to think if you can do like a criminal or in the alternative civil.
what do you criminal or in
Good
the
question.
alternatives?
So she's
Like,
asking
If you can
if
check both
le-
boxes.
Let's I think Kate can articulate her question.
Oh, sure. That's, yeah. Sorry, I'm in a mood. Okay, go ahead.
Legally, I'm actually not sure, and maybe I'll try to look into this, if you can pick both.
Oh, if you can have, right, if you
If
can
it
do
should
both
be.
civil and criminal.
Yeah,
right.
I'm saying, should it actually be radio buttons like this, or should it be you can
Right.
pick both? And I'm not
that's
sure what
your-
the answer is.
Right. And this is probate. We're talking about probate and family court contempt,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
So people like
Kate-
shouldn't be picking criminal, but it's on the form, and I feel like we have to ask it.
Mm-hmm.
So Kate, will you just look into that, or I mean, is it possible for the team to research that, or is it something kind of that you would know in practice that you would?
I
be able
can
to ask?
research it. I think I know like where I would find that answer.
Okay, perfect. So guys, Kate will get back to you on whether that should remain radio buttons or turn into checkboxes.
Cool. All right. So yeah, so then the subsequent screen is where we start asking for like the user's information.
Caroline, now that you've mentioned that you want the defendant's name a lot earlier, will it just be the defendant's name that gets pulled up to the front, or will it be kind of these questions as well?
So this is one of these principles. I
Yeah.
like to see not all your information, but I like to see your name and the defendant's name close to the beginning, because then you can address the plaintiff, you can address your user by their name. And also then you've got people's names to go through. So, and it does make sense to have your name and the defendant's name, but I don't think it's I understand the argument about asking for the plaintiff's name closer to the end. I think this is something we're going to test, but I certainly think the defendant's name should be close to the beginning, because you don't really need your name. I think that's a testing thing we need to figure out, but definitely the defendant's name should be up at the front. So at this point, I guess we're okay to put your name here until, we decide or learn.
All right, so yeah, then just the address page.
And this is the contact information too that gets pulled into the cover sheet. Is that correct?
Yep. Then the
Okay.
interpreter as well.
Shoot.
Should I go
Just-
through what happens if you do yes, or since this is like a sort of general code?
What do you think, guys? Not you guys. What do you think?
This is the ba- this is the
It's basic question, yeah.
basic
Yeah,
question.
So, no, don't worry about it.
Cool.
Michelle, not Michelle, Maeve, Maeve.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hello?
Hello.
Okay. You edited this question in your civil act cover letter for Superior Court, right?
No.
Somewhere I've seen this question edited. And
I think it was someone
somebody
else.
made this better.
Someone made it because they were aiming it. I think it might have been Sinead and Finola, where they were aiming it towards a client, an attorney who was representing a client. So it wasn't, do you need an interpreter? It was, does your client need an interpreter?
Okay, but
so
they
they've-
fixed the then ask bit.
Okay.
They did fix it.
Okay.
So I've been hoping that somehow that edit would get through to basic questions.
Okay, well, let me have a look
because
at the Sinead and Finola's one and see if we can look at that for a way to improve it. As I said, we can't take that one specifically because it's aimed at attorneys.
No, I know I don't want to change that, but you know what I mean. They basically fixed the question so it reads better.
Yeah.
So I was hoping that would make its way into basic questions. So
Okay,
that
so
I know
I'll
we're waiting for that.
If it's agreed upon, then I can just make a pull request with whatever text you provide me.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. So
Like-
why don't
Yeah, okay,
why don't I
yeah.
get the interpreter question from Sinead and Finola's interview?
Yeah.
And then drop that, make it
Right.
an issue.
Because a lot of people are using this question in their interviews, and it's
Yeah.
definitely, if we fix the basic questions, then that solves it.
Okay. So can I make an issue with that correct wording?
I don't think
Sure.
or you and I can just look at it and make sure it's right and do a PR.
Okay.
Great.
Got it. Okay. So we'll fix that, guys. That's nothing for you guys to do.
All right. And then, yeah, this is where the other party is asked as of now, but yeah, we'll move that up.
So the order seems a bit funny because it seems like a bit, I don't know, if I was like a user, I would expect to see like, okay, what's your name? What's the defendant's name kind of thing. So I'm not sure maybe if the order, kind of what we were saying earlier, if maybe like what Caroline said, we ask, what is your name and what is the other party's name right up at the front. I get it's a bit difficult because you have the kick-out screen. You kind of want the quick kick-out screens before you're giving any information. So how do we marry those two kind
I
of?
think if you just do the names before the kick-out screens, that's fine.
Okay.
And I'm not sure. I mean, it does in a way make sense. What's your name? What's the other party's name? I'm not 100% sure we need what's your name in the beginning. And I think
Yeah.
that's something we need to test with people and see what they feel comfortable with.
That's what I was going to bring up.
If
yeah.
they feel like it's weird, they don't. Because it's easy for us to overthink what people are going to think when they do it. Right? Remember, it's not us who's taking this interview, who are doing these.
And Caroline got cut off there, but yeah, I think the general sentiment was taken that we're not going to know. We need to test that with user testing. So I think maybe for now, maybe just ask the defendant's one first, because as Caroline said, it doesn't ask your name anywhere. I mean, there's no reference to like you or whatever up until that point. So yeah, that's fine.
Cool, do that.
And then maybe ask the addresses together. That's the only thing that I could think of bringing, like changing the order. So you ask your name, your address, and then the other party's address.
All right.
I'm guessing that's going to be the next screen.
Yeah.
Did it?
Oh, sorry.
Where did it? What's Jason?
Oh, I put my, like, just the autofill. My name was first, so my name's both.
Okay. Okay.
What, how does it work?
Try to go back
let's
and
let's
change
do
it.
a different name. Let's do a different name.
What if can we just see how it works if you've got more than one defendant in terms of the addresses?
All right.
Although Although, are you going to have more than one defendant in the contempt case?
I mean, you could have two defendants who are both in contempt. I don't know if the court would let you put them on the same complaint or if they would make you file two separate contempts. It's a really good question.
Because I'm wondering, does it make sense? I mean, what would it be if they're like
Yeah, I mean, grandparent visitation is the big one I can think of. Like, they were supposed to return the kid at 10 and didn't.
Right.
Where it's kind of like identical conduct, but I can still kind of see.
Especially for criminal contempt, right? I can't imagine that the court's going to grant criminal contempt against two people and from one complaint.
Yeah, because it really is like an individualized determination.
I mean, maybe to start off with, have one defendant.
Yeah.
So that it just seems a bit odd in real life.
I can see a court not liking it. Yeah.
So that would make things a lot easier for the team to just have one defendant, and then you don't have to deal with what would happen with the addresses.
And also
That's
something
a good point.
something that kind of Michelle has been stressing, and I think is very important, is that we are like looking at MVP. So anything that's over MVP, I think we must just say, you know.
I think the multiple defendants might get the complaint rejected by the clerk's office.
Well, then it's really important. Just do one.
I actually think that's a really good point. I can just see a court really not liking that. Or it might be fine, but I can see enough clerk's office people being like, no, you can't do that.
So then are you saying that we should actually remove the add another button?
Yes. Yeah, and just let them do one defendant per complaint.
Okay. Then maybe, and then do you think, sorry, Caroline?
What we could do is at the end is say, if you need a complaint against somebody else, do this again with the other complaint, because it's a short enough interview and form that you could,
that's exactly what I was
like
going to say.
in the odd case, right? Or the other thing you could say is, you could ask a question at the end. Do you need to do another complaint? You know, is there another defendant? And if yes, then in your instructions, you say, do this again, go through this again. Do you see what I mean?
I would suggest doing it, putting that also at the start, so that people are going, am I if they have two people, they're not going, am I filling in the wrong form? Like, why can I only put one person
good
in?
point. Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, so I was also thinking maybe on the screen again, like I think something that Michelle stresses a lot is like kind of reinforcing things. So you say it at the first page, you say it again over here, like, so instead of saying like to add another, you'd say, if you need to add another defendant or whatever,
you have to do another complaint.
Wherever you first ask about defendants, you just put,
Okay.
Yeah.
You could take that chance to make the screen a little bit more personalized too.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, who's the person you want to file contempt against, or something like that.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, defendant's address. Then we have the impoundment page where if you answer yes to either of the first two, the third question shows up. But if no.
So this is from Mia and Benny's.
I think we have the same.
So you copy. This isn't a basic question. This is you copied from them.
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
And did you take the? So I think this language looks like it's the latest one. Because do you remember we had some conversations about the phone number in the third question?
Yeah.
We changed that language, and I think that's the most recent language as well.
Mm-hmm. I think so. I was just looking at theirs yesterday, so I think that is right.
Okay.
I don't know. It doesn't look like active voice. Which again, my fault. I think I wrote that, but
this is all. This
the
is
last
all
question.
active.
Do you need to keep your phone number secret as well?
Yeah, that's active.
Well, right now it's, do you need your phone number to be kept?
Oh, I see. You're right. I read it wrong.
My bad.
Guys, could you perhaps just take a screenshot, just snip this, and we'll just raise this in the stand-up with Mia and them, just make sure that
Are they, Maeve, aren't they doing a demo today?
They are doing a demo today, yeah.
Right. So we can just check it. When they do their demo, we can,
So just take a screenshot of this, and then we can just compare it with you.
yeah. And in fact, you can look at their GitHub and see what they've done.
Yeah, that too.
And Kate, maybe if they kept it passive, you just remind us, because I just did readability with Mia for 2 hours yesterday. I was getting kind of tired.
I have my unit meeting, my real work unit meeting today.
All right, I'll try to remember then. Or Maeve, you'll remember.
What was I remember?
The active voice on this question.
On the phone number, right.
Yeah. Got it.
All right. And then, depending on if you answer order, the court, or judgment, the subsequent page's question just has whatever the respective answer was.
Goes into the form. Yeah.
So
and that's hard. That's hard to I think explain to lay people order versus judgment. They're gonna pick wrong. Whatever. It's fine though.
Right.
Also thinking.
Sorry.
Perhaps having the judgment, I know this is readability, but having judgment and then order in 2 separate bullet points.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Are we allowed to bold things?
Definitely.
Yes. So then bolding judgment and order and making it order of the court, so that order matches the kind of radio button below. I mean, as Kate says, they might.
Yeah.
I would get rid of order of the court in the radio button and just have it be judgment or order. Sorry, readability, but
I know it's hard to keep it
well, that's not. Yeah, that's good. I mean, it's all of that's good. Yeah.
Oh,
and I think wherever they appear.
Aware of one more thing. Sorry, one more thing is you're giving a definition and then you're asking the person which includes elements, right? And then you're asking the person to say, does it fit the elements that are listed? Why not just ask them those elements directly and you conclude if it's a judgment or order? Is that possible to rewrite it that way?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So how would you do that?
Sorry, can you, Quentin, you're saying just look at your order or your judgment. What do you?
Well, here we say an order is a decision that the court makes while the case is still happening. So that sounds to me like we could just ask them, has the case already ended or is it still ongoing?
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And then from that.
Right. Then you don't ask them about judgment.
You're making a decision
order.
for the person.
Right.
I think it's important to reflect back what the impact of their choice is. So if they do know what an order and a judgment are, they can correct it if we understand it wrong. But we could probably just we can break it down into more questions maybe, or even the same number of questions, so they don't have to decide if it's judgment or order.
That's a good idea.
So you think they don't have to decide if it's judgment or order, they decide if it's ongoing or not?
Right. Whatever the simpler facts are that we could use to decide that for them.
So the thing that, because family law is something that you end up with lots of
that back to them.
Sorry, Kate, what do you say?
You can
I don't think it could quite work like that, because family law is something where you get a lot of subsequent complaints. So you might be bringing a contempt on the divorce judgment, and there's since been 2 mods, but part of the original divorce judgment could still be in effect. So they might think their case is ongoing because there's modification actions, but you're bringing the contempt on the underlying judgment.
I mean, that's really messy. What it is it's look at the decision that you have, because I think what you're saying, there's a good chance you pick order, but it's not. It's not formulaic. It's not automatic.
Yeah, and it's hard to explain that because they all go on the same docket number, so people get really confused about lots of separate cases under one docket number.
So really the most important thing is to look at the decision.
Yeah, I think that should be step 1. Be look at the decision. Does it say judgment or order? And then maybe if it doesn't say it, if the person can't find it, then maybe we move into is the case open or closed?
And Kate, the decisions, they all look different depending on the type of case. So
it might be a margin order. It could be all kinds of things.
Right. So an image would, in fact, might be misleading.
Yeah.
Because there isn't one image.
And then don't even get me into a contempt on a 209A says order, but it's technically treated as a judgment.
I won't.
Yeah,
Kate, you've got to go to your meeting.
I do have another meeting, but let me know if you have questions. I'll like maybe be on Slack during that meeting if you need me.
So why don't we just flag this as guys, we can flag this question as something that we need to look into in terms of readability. I think that all the suggestions were really good ones, and it might be something for you guys to apply your mind to kind of with the knowledge that the SMEs will give.
Sounds good.
Bye, Kate.
All right, so yeah, then the subsequent question, if you selected order, it'd be order here.
Okay.
And as well as here and here.
Okay. So you already know how to do that kind of with tags
Yeah.
and stuff. Very well. Okay.
So in future, we're not going to use Mako, I don't think,
Oh, really?
and variable names, right? Because it makes it harder to translate. Actually impossible in that case. But yeah.
Okay.
All right, and then this question, if you answer yes, 2 subsequent ones show up as well.
Maybe you could take out, I know it's readability again, but if so, please specify. It could be, I don't know. I'm just conscious of like how many lines the big bold heading is.
Is this one case? I think we can break this down a lot, and I also think we do not need to define child support and alimony.
Really?
I mean, they're filing for, or they know what child support and alimony is. The only reason you might define it is for translation. If you're translating, not every country has child support or alimony. So for translations, you might want to explain it. But
Okay.
remember, they've already had the order. So this is contempt. So I really think it's unlikely that you need to explain what they are here.
Okay.
If we do run into a situation where we want something like that for the future, we should make it an issue on the repository.
Okay.
So if this is something we want for the future, I'm just saying.
Right. And this is another place, instead of saying defendant, you can use the other party's familiar. Quentin, I didn't realize you were on this call earlier. When you do the other parties, is it other underscore parties bracket 0 bracket dot familiar parentheses?
Oh, that's a really good question. So
It's a terrible question.
no, it's a good question. I understand it. You don't need to do that. So what we did is a shortcut. So if it's a list, it'll show you the first name of each person in the list. That was
so you don't need the 0.
You don't need the 0. If it's a one person list, it'll just show the one first name.
Okay. All right. I didn't know it was such a good question.
I'll put it on the chat because I was like, oh yeah, that's right. But of course, you were asking if there's a simpler way to do it. I'll write that down so people can see it. There is. You can leave out the bracket 0.
Okay.
Got it.
All right. So should we remove this little paragraph here?
Sounds like maybe we should keep it in for translators, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Though it's not necessary for English, but hard to convey that.
I think Michelle was saying could it be an issue, right? You could take it, or you could put a comment, put it into the comment for the question, and then make an issue using the page ID and say use this text for translations.
Yeah.
So maybe you're saying to justify why we're leaving it in, because I think our workflow for translations, it'll be hard to say use this text only for other languages where you need it. We kind of have to have the language there in English for the translators to see it.
So you can't have commented out. Can't hear what Caroline's saying.
Caroline, we can't hear. Oh God. So
Can we put a comment for the question?
we have. So my one suggestion for that would be, it would be possible if we make a template
No worries.
and we just don't use the template we use the template in the code, but we override the template for English, or we just don't, like something like that. Like we could figure out a way where we could do both. We could have our cake and eat it too. But yeah.
Well, what I would say is like, let's keep in mind our use case, right? Like we're like thinking of curb cuts, like universal accessibility.
Sure.
So if it helps with the translation issue, even if it makes it's like, oh, I don't need that in English, but actually maybe it turns out it's going to be helpful for somebody. So I think we can just leave it in as the simplest solution.
Yeah. No worries, Caroline. We still like you. You're just a robot that goes through time eternal. Just roboting you around. Yeah.
Okay, so outcome agreement, we leave it in for simplicity.
Yeah.
So for the next page, if you answered yes to these, or the next 2 pages that ask 2 questions based on the payment. So the first one is just frequency. And then the subsequent one is the amount.
There was also there was also children on the other page, which we might want to change to child or children. Sorry. Yep, at the title.
So how should you deal with that?
I mean, do you happen to know the number of children they have?
We don't ask that.
So child or children, I think it'd be up to Caroline. She has more experience with this, but if you want to write it in chat or something, if that's easier.
Caroline's nodding. Let the record reflect. Nope.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
And then the slash, I guess, down there too, but that's probably another thing that Caroline will help address.
Okay, she will do readability. And we'll
right, readability later. Okay, sorry.
I feel like Caroline's been put in like the naughty box where she can't speak.
Oh, I think she's like a couple minutes behind.
Now question, make weekly, monthly conditional.
I think that probably means that you could reflect back their choice on the next screen. It's like if we click next.
It's like a fun game of charades. Like
yeah. You don't have to say weekly / monthly. You already know.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's good. Good catch.
All right. And make the condition on the whole sentence. So thinking ahead for translation. Unless, well, maybe it's okay. I don't know. I would write the whole sentence out, weekly or monthly. So that way a translator can do it.
All right.
Caroline's put in another, she just says using the other underscore parties dot familiar brackets or parentheses.
Yeah, this is just a yes, no, that.
Yep, I'm just noticing, I mean, I'm not going to bring it up every time, but every time you have defendant, I think what Caroline's point of having the variable there is a good one.
Yep, we'll change that.
Okay. You can go, yeah. Does anything change depending on whether it's yes or no, or is it just filling in a checkbox?
Yeah, it's just filling the checkbox.
Okay.
I think you would put the plain text at the top and the legal explanation at below. Sorry, Caroline will do this. Sorry, Caroline will do the readability stuff. Okay, sorry.
All right, so then for this page, if you answer yes, then there's a question based on the total.
I'm wondering now.
I'm going to break that up into.
Yeah, what we've kind of done previously is like breaking it up. So not asking somebody for the total, but kind of asking them smaller amounts. But I'm not sure how practically, we don't know. You know what I mean? Yeah. How could we practically do that? Wait,
this would be nice to have Kate at this point. I wonder how.
Sorry, Maeve, can you ask this question again? Can you ask your question?
Kind of something that we've been doing with, like, for example, the affidavit of indigency supplement. Breaking it, instead of asking somebody for the total amount, breaking it up and asking them for smaller amounts, and then doing the calculation on the back end and saying, are you saying no, that's not a good idea? I mean, this would be
I
post
think
MVP.
when you do a complaint for contempt, you ask for you just ask the whole amount.
Okay.
Because I'll tell you, with child support, it's very complicated because sometimes they make payments and sometimes they don't make it's partial, it's all over the place. So basically you say, how much does the defendant owe? You use their name, but how much does Jack owe you?
Okay.
Just like that. And it's just one amount. It's almost impossible to help people figure that out on their own.
Okay.
Cool. Then yeah, this question is also like the other yes, no, that it doesn't alter the subsequent question.
Okay.
It does. Say that again. It does not alter the subsequent question.
So the path
Yeah, like
doesn't
there's
change.
It's an
Thank you.
independent
Thank
thing,
you.
just like one checkbox. I have a question about this though, and it might be a bigger design one, which is not necessarily MVP. It's very hard for someone in a linear interview like this to know what's going to come next. One way around that is to show all the options on one screen. Another way is to just think really carefully about the order of the questions. What you don't want to have is someone answer the wrong question affirmatively because they think, oh, this is the best match for what my issue is. But then later they get to it and they're like, oh, actually, I answered that wrong. Now that I see I have this other choice. And then they have to go back and select the opposite on the previous screen.
Right.
Are they exclusive?
There are lots of ways to get around that. Like maybe they're all like just really clear and there's no way people to get confused by them. Maybe you say up front what kinds of help they can get in it and say, okay, we'll go through these one by one. Maybe have check boxes. I don't know, but I think you should just think about that. Like, is there any chance someone will get confused, not know what question's coming later and answer it wrong because of that?
Caroline says, check with Kate. It makes sense to have one screen with checkboxes for all the kinds of contempt a person might be filing.
That would be my guess too, that's like the simplest way, because then they're actually making the choice in the same time. They don't have to like keep in mind what we told them up front. But
okay. Yeah,
I do get this way makes it easier to answer each thing. But the problem is when people have to make a bunch of choices at once, like, do they know what things are going to be missing?
Caroline says it's unusual to have complaint for contempt for both parenting time and child support.
So maybe, is that indicating it should be radio buttons, or just it's going to be unusual, but we let people use checkboxes either way?
These are separate orders, so the contempt would be match each order. So the contempt would be...
Oh, okay.
Oh, right. So you'd have different contempts for each order.
So maybe we would have that be the opening screen. It's a radio button, like what kinds of contempt do you need? And then if it's not one of the options that's listed there, it would be a screen out question. Might be like the very first question, actually. Actually, I kind of like that anyway, because it lets people see right away before they get too far in the interview, is this going to be able to help me?
Oh, good point by Caroline. You could use this interview to produce more than one of these complaints. So what I'm interpreting from that is like if you've got a couple of orders, 2 orders, say one with parenting time, one with child support, you don't have to then fill in the same information twice. You could use that information and build on. So like this kind of screen would be repeated afterwards if you have like a question at the end, like do you need another order or something like that.
Well, I would say have them at the beginning as checkboxes and then ask the questions that are relevant, as opposed to having them do a different one later. Okay.
Yeah.
This could be a good issue just to note for a future person like working on this, basically.
So how would you define that issue?
Capture it.
Let people generate multiple contempt complaints because they may have related issues that each have their own order.
As an issue, I assume Quentin is saying, or as a comment, or both.
Yes, as an issue.
Okay. Let people generate multiple
a GitHub issue, in case that wasn't clear.
I do think maybe like an MVP, close to MVP, but it depends. Like if you were gonna like rank in order of priority, I think letting people see what kinds of help they can get early on the interview is, I think, really valuable.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, next screen.
All right, so yeah, this is similar to the due and unpaid payments where answering yes reveals a second question.
Oh, good. I guess this would be one to kind of link again, like what we were saying with where we link to parenting time.
Yep. All right. Then yeah, this is another independent question.
Okay. When Caroline's typing something. We need consultation with Kate on explaining more about restraint on personal liberty. Could you guys just flag that for discussion with Kate, please?
Yep. All right, so then this page is like the alimony and child support page where answering yes to the first one brings up 2 subsequent questions, and yeah, we'll make the changes to like the child, like children thing here, similar to how we make it on the alimony page.
Okay.
And then also we'll do the defendant to their actual name.
Okay. And is anything conditional on anything else?
No, this is.
Caroline says it might make sense at some point to ask about the order or judgment, how many children. Then we can consistently use child or children depending on their answer. So that's a good catch, Caroline, and I think that's something that I would really flag as post MVP. So, I mean, I think that's a kind of like, I'm not sure if everyone agrees with me, but in my mind, that's kind of like second round after MVP, right? I mean, how hard is it to actually do that though? Not that hard, probably. It's negligible.
Yeah.
It's very easy question. Okay, so we include that. Okay. Okay.
Then this is like the same as the last page too.
Yeah, check boxes is definitely.
So Caroline says check boxes. We heard that one, Caroline.
Yeah, you heard that. Okay.
It comes in and out. So, so
yeah.
oh no, it's not.
This whole interview would be so much easier.
And you just muted yourself. So this whole interview would be so much easier. It would. I agree. With something.
With check boxes is definitely the way to go. Capitals for the way.
And I can see there are going to be follow-up questions like here. You have to ask the details about it, but just have the initial screen be the big topics, I guess. And then the follow-ups on later screens is what I would do, at least.
What's helped me in kind of going through these kind of questions, and Caroline says, because then you don't have to go through all these questions. So that's kind of what we were doing as well on the civil action cover sheet. There's a bunch of questions about, like, if this is a tort claim, kind of list your medical expenses and your damages. If this is a contract claim, list your contract damages. So initially we had this in the very similar format where we had all the kind of screens being showed. And then what we've changed it to is actually more of a, is this a tort claim, like tort claim, contract claim, and then you can check which one it is. And then depending on which ones you check, then you get shown that screen. So it takes it a lot less for the user to go through, and they don't have to see screens that are not necessarily applicable to them. And the way we map that out using a flowchart, which I can show you how we did, because it was really helpful to kind of visualize the logic.
Okay, so let's see the subsequent screens, right?
Yeah.
We have like 10 minutes. So
All right. So yeah, this is also one of the has a conditional question.
It's show if, right? So
Yep.
Okay. Judgment is
Checkbox.
Okay.
Sorry.
Have we figured out the limits on these fields, by the way? The maximum number of characters it will fit, and etc.
Oh, so we have an addendum set up for
Okay.
this
fancy.
one, and then the subsequent question or the next
Okay.
page too has an addendum set up.
You didn't even brag
Nice.
about that yet. That should have been your first thing. If I had an addendum set up, I'd be like, first up, guys, we've got an
Show
addendum.
it, you know, make the thing long.
If you've got it, sell it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's a cool thing. Especially because seems like one of the places where it might be a little bit longer than what might be provided for it. Caroline says, one more conditional at the beginning. You ask about the judgment or order. Use this in all questions where you refer to order.
Oh, yeah, we can definitely make that change. All right. Then the subsequent page is another answer yes and then. Ask about the dates, and then this one is the other addendum question.
Okay, what's the difference between the two other order screens?
So I think so like on our PDF there's like two sets. That's why like I could share that again to kind of show.
Yeah, could you quickly just pull that up for us and have a quick look?
Yeah.
My concern with that screen is like the multiple dates in one input. If it might not be better to have like an add another option instead. So you like have the first time the defendant violated the order, and then like adding another option. If
Yeah, I think
once.
Yeah, we originally had just like it was a date field, but then when we were meeting with Kate, she suggested we have it more just a text box because it could be a whole bunch of different things.
Right, so it could be a description as opposed to like a specific date. They could say like on or about. Okay, that's the catch. Yeah, I think we have a similar thing in the 209A with the affidavit, right? It's like describe when. Okay.
So then, yeah, why we have a lot of like similar questions because it basically kind of asks similar things both under like question number 3 and question number 4. And that's why like the second order question applies to this, this, and this, and the first one applies to this and this.
Jason, can you repeat what you just said? I didn't
Yeah.
quite follow.
Yeah, so the reason we had like an other order page and then the next page was other order violated is because so the other order sort of applies to right here under question 3 where it asks other and then has the description. Then the other order violated covers here where it asks more like asks the date and the description again. And that's kind of why like for a lot of questions that we kind of have like similar questions back to back because it asks about it like multiple times in the document, but like slightly different.
Well, could you combine those
So,
to ask the
I'm
slightly
gonna
different things more clearly, like differentiated so that,
Right. So
you know,
the point,
yeah, go ahead,
Yeah.
Caroline.
okay, I'm going to try and talk. Just
Okay.
it's too hard to write this.
Well,
The
that's
point of a contempt is there was an order. Maybe let me see if I go outside if you get better.
Let's see if this works any better.
Just keep going.
So if you're in contempt, there has to be an existing order to be in contempt of.
Yeah.
So you don't have to ask if the defendant was ordered to do something and then ask if they violated it. It's not two separate questions. I mean, I think there's a way to ask this so that you're not asking it twice. I think that's the thing. I don't think you need two other orders, because you're only going to be filing this if they violated an order that already exists. So you don't have to ask everything that the defendant was ordered to do. You only need to know about what orders the defendant. So basically, it's what orders did the defendant violate? The A, B, C. It's like whatever court ordered, whatever. It's really 4. Because if they violated it, that means it exists. So you don't have to ask if it existed. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you hear? Am I?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, this is working a lot better now.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Just stay right there.
Okay. Well, it's because I'm outdoors, but
Always.
Are you?
Yeah, you can't see the screen.
Always stay right there.
But so if that's clear, then you don't have to ask the question. So if you start off, I mean, this wouldn't be plain language, but it's like, what orders did the defendant violate? And then you list all of them: child support, alimony, health insurance, the whole thing. And if they violated it, that means they were ordered to do it. So you automatically are going to check the ones that they were ordered to do in the beginning. You don't have to check them if they didn't violate them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
I mean, I double check with Kate, but I don't think if they're not violating a child support order, I don't think you have to put in that they were ordered to pay child support. I think that's irrelevant. But I would check that with Kate, but it seems a bit odd.
I would agree with that. That would be my take on it too. But I would also say you could probably, there's a couple other questions that are like that you could streamline. So you don't have to ask if they're in arrears of court-ordered support payments, if they violated an order about
child support.
You can just check that if they answer the next question, which says there remains due and unpaid the sum of such and such.
So you can really shorten your interview. You can ask a lot. Well, I think you can ask fewer. I think you can have fewer questions in your interview, and then you can also shorten the experience for your user by using the check. You'll have as many questions, but your user won't have to answer as many questions if you use those check boxes in the beginning.
And you'll have fewer screens to test. So
exactly,
everybody's a winner.
All right. Yeah, we could definitely make those changes. I'll go back to the interview.
Okay, I'm just aware that we have 2 minutes left. So do we have much more to get through?
No, there's only like maybe the attorney stuff we have, because this is just a basic question.
Again, I'm conscious of the fact that there's only one, that maybe we only allowed one docket number here, kind of similar to what we were saying before.
This actually, you may need multiple, because if it's a complaint for contempt and child support and you're unmarried, you may have multiple docket numbers.
Okay,
and I think
that's right. That was the number, yeah.
One complaint for contempt.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
And is there a limit on this, or is there an addenda for this?
There is.
I
think the court will hate getting an addendum for
on docket numbers.
So what we did on the previous one, I think it was Mia's, or I can't remember which group had it.
It'll be Mia's, because she's
we made we made the block very big, and we kind of adjusted a couple of things on the form to make it
on the PDF.
A number of because as Quentin says, that's not the correct use of an addenda. That will really frustrate people.
The court.
I guess then, can you put a limit on the number you ask for then, that like there is a maximum?
We were saying like, what is the maximum of like children an unmarried person can have? And then Kate was like, people can have a lot of kids with a lot of different, like you could have 10 different ones. So I mean, I don't know where we draw the line here.
Either we have a maximum or we have an addendum. You can't like just have.
Yeah, no. Let's.
No, I know.
I think we can check with Kate on that. What do you do if you've got 10 docket numbers and they don't all fit? I mean, I think that's the thing. We have to figure out the practical solution first. I think it will be a limit, but we definitely won't have an addendum.
because Kate said in practice what they would do is they would actually just write on the form itself.
Yeah.
So I think this is something that Mia's group came up with, and maybe we can also just talk to them a little bit about it, but flag it as something that we can talk to Kate with as well.
Yeah.
Yep, it's just that a PDF text area does not, I mean, PDF text area does not get bigger.
Exactly.
Like, so.
Yeah. Well, it's been
No,
dealt
but
with already.
it can't expand dynamically.
Right. No, yeah. So we just made the input area bigger.
We've dealt with this already on an interview.
Yeah.
So let's go see what the answer to that. Michelle, it's already taken care of. We just don't know what the answer is.
Yeah. Okay, so it's 12:30, guys. I think, can we, how many more screens, are there just basic question screens coming up?
We have, the court page, and then we have, we ask if they have an attorney, and if they say yes, there's a subsequent page asking for the attorney's name, and then one asking for the attorney's address. And then that's it.
Okay. I think you guys have got a lot to work on from this kind of review. So maybe what we do is you guys go back and work on these things, and kind of, I would definitely recommend sticking around for Vinny and Mia's presentation, because we can then check those two things that we flagged. And then,
do you want to do your fixes before you send it to me for readability, or do you want me to do readability at the same time?
Whatever.
Okay, do your fixes first.
We'll do that.
I took some notes, so I'll also send those to you guys. Otherwise, really good job.
Yeah.
Thank you.